Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here. It's good to have you joining us today. I hope that everything will go well and that you will have a wonderful experience. And if you have not yet done so, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and write your name in the chats so that I know that you are here with us. Um, so I see that a few of you have joined already. And we're about to get started here. So I'd just like to say good evening to those who have just joined us. I encourage you to grab a pencil or a pen or something in case you want to make any notes. It's not necessary, but in case you want to refer back to anything that we are saying tonight, at least you'll be able to write some stuff down. Also, if you have any questions, jot them down so that you don't forget to ask them or just mention them in the chat. I'm going to do a little Q&A at the end, so if there's any questions that you have, feel free to write them down for us. So I'm assuming that everyone is hearing me clearly. So I'd like to just say, let's get this show on the road. So the topic for this evening, or the topic for the class for today, is the 7 keys to getting and staying well. The 7 keys to getting and staying well. And very important information. I hope that you find it as such, and I hope that you participate. We encourage all participation because it will help you to stay engaged and allow me to stay alert. So please, we welcome your participation. So let us begin. So the topic is the 7 keys to getting and staying well. This is our contact information if you don't already have it. Here you go. And like I said, we want it to be a full participation time. So if you have any questions or anything, I want you to ask them. If there's something, if I make a point that you don't understand, I want you to be able to ask it. I don't want you to just sit there and be mindless robots or whatever, or just accepting everything that I say because I say it. I want you to be able to get the most out of this experience. And obviously, I'm not in favor of any kind of tyrannical approach or dictatorial approach, or me teacher, you pupil, you do as I say kind of approach. I like the collaboration because I realize often that education can come from any direction. And if you close your line of communication so that it is one way, then you will never be a receiver and you'll never learn. So I want to always keep learning. I consider myself the perpetual student. And so I welcome you to share, ask comments, or ask questions, make comments, because at the end of the day, I think we'll be able to learn from each other. Okay? So here we go. So 7 keys to getting and staying well. There's a handout that I used to give out, but I don't have a way of making it interactive as yet. If you have any suggestions, you can let me know. But it would be great if I could have it in a way that whether you're listening on your mobile devices, your cell phones, your tablets, or on your PCs or your smart TV, you can still make your jottings. And so please, I hope that's something that can work out. We shall see. So the first key, and as we go through these 7 keys, I want you to really pay attention to the bolded items, because the bolded items are usually the ones that we use as our focal points, so that if you have any, if you're filling in the blanks on the handouts, or if you want to just know what to focus on in any of these slides, those bolded items are the things to focus on. All right, so the first key is understanding that the system that we call the healthcare system focuses primarily on taking care of sick persons or those who are not well. As a consequence of that, you will find that all of the ideas, all of the plans, all of the strategies are focused on how do you care for the sick. The downside to that is that if you are somebody who either are already well or have a fairly high level of wellness and you just want to improve that level, or if you don't really have anything major that's wrong, you just want to continue to live the wellness lifestyle, then this system is not designed for you. And so you'll find that you'll be frustrating yourselves by seeking wellness type approaches from the healthcare system. So to make the distinction, I'm referring to it as the sick care system, not in a derogatory way, but because it's caring for the sick. But I do that on purpose because there's a point I want to bring out, because there is a difference in mindset between a wellness mindset or a healthy mindset versus a sickness or an illness mindset. So the first distinction is that this system, sick care system, is reactive. And what do I mean by reactive? What do we mean by reactive? By reactive, we mean that we wait until something has gone wrong before action is implemented. That's reactive. That's being reactive. You respond to something that has already happened. The opposite of being reactive is being proactive. And if you want to have a chance of achieving full health or true healthcare or true health, then you have to have a more proactive approach to your health. Very few people get it right. And when I say get it right, I mean have a very good balance between doing things that are necessary to be as healthy as possible without going overboard and becoming dysfunctional in society, because you have to realize that there is always a balance. And if you are so regimented in your approach that you can't, whether it is interact with friends or family members, or when you go out, if you ever do go out, you're not able to socialize in a way that will add to a meaningful exchange between yourself and those you love, then that might become a problem. If you are the leader of a household, if you're a parent, a father, a mother, and you're so regimented in your approach that the kids have to always be eating perfectly, otherwise you'll come down extremely hard on them, then you may end up with rebellious kids. And so we have to be mindful about how we do things so that there is balance. All right, so I'm a big advocate for balance and having a balanced approach to everything that we do. So true healthcare is proactive. But the problem that we find ourselves in today is that we're in a healthcare crisis. And many people don't even realize that we're in a healthcare crisis. And the healthcare crisis is not because of what's happening with this this situation, this global infection situation. But this crisis has been around for a long time. And by crisis, what we do see as an example of the thing that supports the idea that we're in a crisis is the fact that we are spending more and more money for health services, but we're getting less in return. Now, it never makes sense to spend more and more and be getting less and less. It never makes sense to do that. So therein is the first dysfunction. And the reason we're spending more and getting less is because the focus of the system, in my opinion, is incorrect. Now, if your business is making money off sick people, then if you want to make as much money as possible, then you want to make sure you have as many sick people as possible. And in a world where there is so much greed and so much, selfish pursuits, we find that this is exactly what happens. A system that's designed or originally intended to be there as the protector for us, the thing that saves us in the event that we're knocking on death's door, or the thing that can propel us to optimal lifestyle, is the thing that oftentimes, and I have to be careful how I say it because I don't want to, again, belittle the role of the system, but it's as if they take advantage of illness. For example, research, a lot of money goes into research for drugs that can help to ease certain suffering, certain conditions, to manage your symptoms, if you will. But not a lot of research goes into preventing or curing a particular ailment. So we'll see things like skin conditions, we'll see like psoriasis or whatever the condition is. But most of the treatments are geared at managing symptoms. And that is problematic. The only type of drug that really focuses a little bit higher up the chain, looking at causation to some degree, would be like antibiotics or antiparasitics or antifungals, or even vaccines for that matter. They are typically designed to be more preventative in their approach. The problem is, or curative I should say, in their approach. The problem is that not everything that's called a duck is actually a duck. And so not everything that's called a duck will quack. And not everything that's called a vaccine is actually a vaccine. Not everything that's designed to fight an infection is actually good for you. So there's a lot of nuances to it, and one has to be careful. And if you're interested, we could talk a little bit more about some of that a little bit later on. But without beleaguering the point, the answer to the problem of illness in our world has to deal with the cause of the majority of illness in our world. And the main cause of illness is lifestyle. Lifestyle choices that we make is what leads to illness. And so if we want to be well, then we have to do one thing and one thing only: change our lifestyle. We have to change our lifestyle, or being willing to change our lifestyle. And so you find that designing more drugs or having more surgeries cannot solve a lifestyle problem. It never has, and it never will. And for that reason, our operating theaters will remain full, our hospitals will remain full, we will always have a shortage of beds. But for hospitals to survive, an empty bed is a liability. So the more beds you have that are filled in a hospital, is the better the hospital will do. And this is an unfortunate truth. And so what's the vested interest in it? if the system that is supposed to get us healthy makes a living off our illness? It's a very serious point to consider. What happens when the system that's intended to make us healthy in actuality makes a living on our illness? And there's no motivation anymore. And so we are in a crisis. We're in a crisis. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to open your eyes a little bit, open your minds a little bit, so that you can understand how you can kind of fix your mindset so that your families will be protected, you will be protected, your loved ones will be protected, and you can share this mindset that can help them make wiser choices. Because if you have an illness mindset, you're going to make choices that's going to result in your illness or the illness of a child or a loved one. Whereas if you have a wellness mindset, then the choices that you make will move you closer toward wellness. And so we're going to talk about those two choices right now. In the illness model, the goal is, what can I do in order to feel, or what can I take in order to feel better? It's as if the only concern that persons have is feeling better. I don't know if you've noticed that. How can I feel better? Well, there are many things that are on the market right now that can make you feel better without you actually getting any better. And the problem with that is that you might feel some measure of improvement because you're not suffering, and so think that something good is happening, when in fact many of these methods that are employed to ease your suffering actually make you sicker, but in a different way. Sometimes it makes you sicker in the same way. For example, many of the asthma medications, and I'm going to just reveal something to you that many might not be aware of, is that the number one cause of asthma-related deaths is asthma medication. Most people who die of asthma are on asthma medications, and the asthma medication themselves can result in an overreaction of the asthma symptoms, especially if you try to come off it. Now, this is a very serious indictment, because as soon as somebody has asthma, they want to put them on medications. Not every asthma sufferer needs a chemical solution. And I say this definitively because I've had many people who've come to us with asthma as one of their diagnoses, that once we find out that it's a spine-related issue and can correct the area of the spine that's related to the airways, or the nerves that control the airways, or the muscles in the airways, then we oftentimes see a reversal of their asthma symptoms, or at least a significant improvement in their asthma symptoms. And I've seen this numerous times. And I believe, as long as I remain in practice, that I will continue to see this again. So, feeling better, if feeling better is your goal, then somebody can take advantage of you. If feeling better is your goal, then somebody can take advantage of you. And so you have to be careful. What I believe should be the right mindset is not just simply asking, what can I take to feel better, but asking, what must I do in order to get better? Because getting better is far more preferred than simply feeling better. Getting better is preferred to feeling better. The wellness paradigm continues because most of us, when we think about health and illness and what have you, we will ask, if we're not well, it's as if we're hoping that we will miraculously become well. You know, somebody's in the hospital, you buy them a card that says, "Get well soon." Well, the "Get well soon" card might be filled with good intentions, But if you strip it away a little bit and look at it, you will realize that for the get well soon card that you're writing to persons, you're not asking them to get out of bed and try to do some exercise or to change your lifestyle and start eating some more fruits and vegetables and throwing away the saturated animal fats from your diets and all these things. You're just saying get well, which means you're just wishing that they become well, or you're praying that they will miraculously be well. We need something more tangible than that. We don't want just to have persons wish us well or we wishing ourselves well. But we have to recognize that wellness is not something that is achieved in an instant. Wellness is actually more about the journey than it is about the destination. Wellness is a process, or a process, depending on where you're coming from. Wellness is a process. And because it's a process, then we want to make sure that we do the things necessary to ensure that wellness will not only ensue but will remain. So if you do good things for a moment and then stop doing them, then you're going to regress. So I encourage you, think instead of wanting to get well, think instead, what do I need to do ongoingly in order to stay well? Because that is the key, staying well. The last measure of the illness mindset as to how well the system of the illness care or the sick care system is doing is the notion of longevity, how long people live. I'll make 2 points on this. One is that the average 90-year-old, and I'll say this again, the average 90-year-old is healthier than the average 70-year-old. And I'll say this again. The average 90-year-old is healthier than the average 70-year-old. Why is that? Well, unfortunately for the 70-year-olds, they experienced their adulthood in the 1960s and 70s and 80s and coming forward. The problem with those who were in their early adult years in the 70s and 80s is that the technology that changed, they were the ones that embraced it, not their parents. And so you find that the average 90-year-old person now, they were already in their 50s or so on in the 1970s. And so they didn't adapt to the new ways of doing things like microwave foods. You know, they still cooked every meal. They didn't use microwaves a lot to warm up food and so on. When food come out of the fridge, they put it on the stove and they warm it up on the stove or in the oven. Whereas the younger adults in those times, when microwave technology started to come around and become popular, that's when they started to embrace it. If we also look at that time frame as well, in the 1980s, that's when we had a lot of the fast food explosion. KFC and those other companies, they probably started in the 1970s, or, you know, in that time frame, that's when they really started to become popular. 1980s, Burger King and all these other fast food places started to come in. Back in the early days, we used to just content ourselves with patties. And patties, as bad as they were, usually the beef that was used is a better quality beef because usually it was grass-fed beef. Now with the high yield farming methods, there's a lot of pesticides and fungicides and antibiotics and whatever in our farming. Steroids and different things given to cows so that they will produce more meat and make more money. But as a consequence of that, we who ingest these things become sicker and sicker and sicker. So you find that right now the average 70-year-old will be on a lot more medication than the average 90-year-old. In fact, the average 70-year-old will not live to see 90. The average 70-year-old will not live to see 90. And by extension, those who live to see 90 typically are doing better, so they live longer, generally speaking. But living longer doesn't mean necessarily that you are doing better. So longevity cannot be the primary measure of how we're doing as far as health or our lives are concerned. And I'm going to suggest now that a better measure than how long we live is how well we're living. If we not just are staying alive, but feeling alive. Because feeling alive is way more critical, in my opinion, than simply being alive. Because what's the point if you're still alive, animated, able to just breathe, move around, but you're not able to interact with your family very much because you might not remember them. You might have dementia, you might have severe heart disease, you might have severe chronic illnesses, diabetes, hypertension, what have you, on numerous medications that make you drowsy, sluggish, having lethargy, all these things. What good is having life if you can't enjoy your life? And that's why I suggest, and I'm somewhat of I guess I'm a radical thinker, but I suggest that living as well as possible is going to ensure that you feel as lively as possible. But it does not ensure that you're going to live as long as possible. Because healthy people die young too. There are many healthy people that take up space in our morgues, probably because of some accidents. Maybe they had a fall, they had a car accident, or something happened to them. Maybe they were the result of some act of violence. Maybe it is that they had some hereditary condition that predisposed them to an ailment. For example, there are certain conditions that people have that may cause their blood vessels to be weaker than other people. And so they will have a higher likelihood of having either an aneurysm rupture or a stroke or some other blood vessel rupturing and killing them. And this is despite eating well. So I'm not here to say that eating well means you're going to live long. But one thing's for sure is that until you die, if you're eating well, you're typically going to have a very high quality life. And so that's kind of the highest probability outcome for somebody who eats well and lives well, is that they typically enjoy a better quality of life with fewer illnesses, fewer diseases, and better expression of health. But I want to show you something here. Under the illness care, if you look at it here, you'll see it says, feel, get, stay. But on the wellness care, it's a subtle shift to get, stay, feel. Instead of feeling better, you want to get better. Instead of wishing to get well, you want to stay well and do the things necessary to remain well. And instead of staying alive or thinking that you want to live as long as possible, you want to feel alive and having that good quality of life. And I think that's the most important thing. Now, our second key, and it's going to start moving by much quicker now. Our second key is the truth about pain. The truth about pain. Is pain a good thing or a bad thing? I know many people will want to argue one or the other, but I'm going to ask you just stop and think about it, what it is for you. How do you categorize pain? Is it a good thing in your opinion? Or is it a bad thing? Just write it in the comments. Let me give you a couple seconds to just make the jotting. Write in your comments. Is pain a good thing or is it a bad thing? All right. So, in my opinion, well, let me just declare that I am not here to create any issues between factions here and have those who are pro pain and those who are anti pain, because it seems as though if you have a differing opinion, then one is a pro painer and one is an anti painer, or whatever way that they want to divide us as people, which by the way it's stupid. It is stupid to cause division among ourselves. And I'll take a moment here to just say this. Regarding the solution that's being offered for the disease that is currently, or the pestilence that's currently plaguing our land and around the world, you have some persons who are convinced in their minds that they ought to, and some persons who are convinced in their minds that they ought not. Irrespective of which position you have, if you're convinced one way or the other and you're acting based on your convictions, which is the way that we are supposed to act as human beings. To act contrary to our conviction is that is the only stupidity. The only challenge though that I have is when somebody is convicted of a position but they are forced into a different position. I have a major problem with that, because it is now moving into the realm of tyranny. And I can't understand why those who are on the side of a particular viewpoint fail to see that those who are on the opposite side are being victimized, and they fail to stand up for the ones who are being victimized. I think largely because there is a belief that the ones who are not in favor of, or who are convicted or convinced that they ought not do whatever it is, that somehow they are a threat to the safety of the others. We have to be very careful, because when we're starting to pit one person against another, or one group of people against another, this is the beginning of anarchy. And we have to stop that. As a Christian, I cannot be in favor of things that divide us as people. There are some people who are Christians and some people who are not Christians. And as a Christian, I'm called to love both. I can't hate the one who is not a Christian because he disagrees with me. If he's convinced or she's convinced of a different viewpoint, I have to respect that and continue to love that individual. So can we just agree right now that in this space that we will begin to cross the divide of animosity and move toward reconciliation with our fellow man, and reaching out to persons who may have a different opinion from us, and see how we can reconcile and get back together. We might not agree to the same page or be on the same page, but we need to get back together. And we have to also understand that people's experiences often dictate how they view things. And so if your experience is identical to mine, then we might view things the same way. But no two people have identical experiences. Not even identical twins have identical experiences. And so you find that the way they come to a certain conclusion might be different. We need to love each other and stop espousing or promoting hate. But pain, getting back to the point, pain for some persons is a good thing, for others it's a bad thing. But one thing we can be sure of is that pain has a purpose. And what's the purpose of pain? Pain alerts us that something has changed and requires attention. Pain alerts us that something has changed and requires our attention. Now, what many people fail to understand is that pain is not totally reliable. There are limitations to pain. You can't trust pain to always tell you when something is wrong. And this is what many people fail to understand. So, just because somebody feels good does not mean they have good health. And I say that one more time. Just because somebody feels good does not mean they have good health. Good health can only be concluded if all the functions of your body are working the way they should work. And the only way to know if it is or if they are working well is not even by testing their functions. Because you may be able to test the heart and the heart is not in a state of disease, but it might not be working optimally. You might check the liver functions, and though the numbers are within the normal range, the liver might not be optimal. So when we're talking about all the functions working the way they should, we're talking about all the functions of our bodies working optimally. The best way to kind of ensure that is by doing the things that are necessary to promote the health of these things. Not simply testing or measuring to see if they're working, because a blood test, for example, will only show a problem when the person already has considerable decline. Because our blood environment is designed to stay within a tight parameter. And so if something is out of range in our blood, it's probably already out of range in our tissues. So we need to ensure that we do more than just simply doing an executive profile every year and saying that I'm doing well, because the executive profile won't catch everything. But we need to make sure that we're doing things that promote the health of the different systems. So what are some of these things? Well, what are the systems of the body? The systems of the body are these: the immune system, digestive, cardiovascular, integumentary, respiratory, endocrine, reproductive, the excretory system, musculoskeletal system, and the nervous system. All these systems of the body work together to achieve optimal health in the individual. If any one system is not working properly, then we're going to have a problem. Now, here's something that is important, and it's something that I live by. Medications, for the most part, they have a place. The role for medication is there in the event that there is an emergency situation that the person did not bank on, like some trauma that happened that caused them to need some medical intervention or medicinal intervention, or for those persons who are not living the wellness lifestyle. Those are the people who need medication. So if you're eating poorly, you're eating all these processed foods, processed meats, processed whatever it is, drinks, whatever, then your body is going to break down. You're going to get sick. You are going to get sick. Whether it is diabetes or hypertension or high cholesterol or something, you're going to get sick. And if you want to continue to live that lifestyle, then medication is for you. You need to be on medication. You need to be consistent with your medication. Otherwise, you are going to suffer in life more than you need to, and or you may end up dying before you need to. So you need to be on your medications. However, If you're living a wellness lifestyle and eating the way you're supposed to, drinking what you're supposed to, avoiding toxins as well as you can, then more than likely you will not need medications because you will not have a disease. And so if you're living the wellness lifestyle, then the medication might not be the best thing for you, because there's no medication that can get you optimally healthy or optimally well. And the reason for that is that medications are all poisons. Every single drug that you put into your body is a poison that has to be metabolized either by the liver or by the kidneys for excretion. Every single drug. And if you take a drug that has to be metabolized and excreted or neutralized or eradicated from our bodies, then it's a toxin to avoid. But if you are not living the way you should live, then that toxin might be something that you need so as to continue living. My decision is that I've chosen to live in such a way so as to prevent my need for any medication whatsoever. Any medication whatsoever. Now, I often hear people ridicule Christians, and I am a Christian, so I'll stand in defense of my fellow believers. But oftentimes people ridicule Christians and say that, them just going to trust God instead of trusting science or trusting man, or trusting what man has been able to achieve through science. We have to be very careful because many people worship science, and science has become their little gods with a little g. And science has replaced God for many people. So they believe that scientifically the world came into being in a particular way. They believe scientifically that we are the way we are because of some evolutionary process. They believe that the world is a particular age. They believe all these things because they believe science to be true. Whereas if you're a Christian and you believe the Bible to be true, the Bible is often at odds with science. And if you believe that science is true, you're going to be tempted to either disregard what the Bible says or change your interpretation of what the Bible says and make it some figurative thing instead of a literal thing. But on the point of science versus the Bible says every fruit-bearing tree we're given for food, and the herbs of the ground are given for medicine. Vegetables and fruits are for our food. Herbs are for our medicine. And because I believe that, I live by that. And so I try to, if I eat something, it comes from the earth as best as possible. If I am sick in any way, my remedies also come from the earth as much as possible. I try to avoid synthetic things that are out of balance with our bodies. Yes, there have been some wonderful discoveries in medicine, and I do not discount it. But medicine and these discoveries are not designed for those who are healthy. They are designed for those who are sick. So if you are sick, go ahead, medicines are there for you. If you are healthy, you do not need them. And that's all I'll say on that. Oh, by the way, when somebody says, I believe in God, and so I will follow God and not man, what they're actually saying is, rather than man-made medications, they will take God-made medications. It does not mean that we will disregard any intervention because we're not going to follow the man-made medications, if you understand what I'm saying. So it's not trusting God versus trusting medicine. No. It's trusting God-made medicine, not man-made medicine. Trusting God-made foods, not man-made foods. That's it. That is the paradigm that we're defending as believers. And if you're not there yet, even as a Christian, not every Christian is there because of there's been enough information and misinformation out there that many people actually don't believe that the best way to live is actually that way. There are many people who don't believe it until they find themselves in some crisis and then have to switch to that lifestyle to recover. But that's another message for another day. Maybe I'll discuss it later on. Our nervous system is called the master control system of the body. And the reason it's the master control system of the body is because it controls and regulates all the different functions of the body, all the different organs. And if you notice on the side here, the brain and spinal cord represent the major organs of the nervous system, and every other organ system is branches off from those nerves. In other words, your nerves control the different systems of your body. And so if the nervous system is not working properly, then your other systems might not work properly. And so a healthy nervous system will be the best way to contribute to the overall health of your being, because it directs and regulates the functions of the others. But what people don't know is that a misaligned vertebra, which we call the vertebral subluxation, that word means misalignment, causes nervous system dysfunction. So your nerves might not work properly if you have misaligned vertebrae that's affecting the function of the nerves as they exit the spine. And this is important. All right? So if you look at this, say, for example, and George, if you missed something, just go ahead and just drag the cursor to the beginning or to wherever you missed it, and just pick up from there, or wait till the end and then just drag the slider for the video to the beginning and just watch it, because I think I've enabled it so that you can replay the video. All right, so let us do that. All right, so if you look at this spine, the middle vertebra or the middle bone is displaced relative to the others. I don't know if you can see that. Now there's an opening for the nerves to exit each of those spaces. If the bone is displaced, it also closes off the opening. If you close off the opening, you may interfere with the nerve that exits through that space. If that nerve controls your stomach, you may end up with a stomach problem. If that nerve controls your digestive system, you may end up with digestive system problems. If that nerve controls your ability to excrete, you might end up with either urinary problems or constipation or diarrhea. Depending on what that nerve controls will determine how it is impacted by an irritation or compression in that area. The main thing that can cause displacements like these would be falls, car accidents, or other traumas, physical traumas. But there are other types of things that can cause these types of occurrences. So we'll talk about that here. The other things that can affect the function of our system, we call it stress. Anytime that something encounters our body that can disrupt our normal function, it is a stressor of some type. It's either a physical stressor, like something like a car accident or some trauma, a biochemical stressor, like something you put into your bodies, like a chemical you put into your bodies, or a psychological stressor, which is something that, a way of thinking, or how happy you are at work or in your family situation or whatever. These are anything that causes a psycho-emotional impact will be a psychological stressor. The healthier our nervous system is, the better able we are to adapt to our environmental stresses. And so our ability to adapt is determined by the width of our gap. And our gap is, I'm using general adaptive potential, GAP, to explain this concept. So try to pay attention for me. Try to follow it. Every gap will have a lower limit and an upper limit, where the space between it represents the gap. If you are able to increase that upper limit higher and higher, then what ends up happening is your gap becomes wider and wider. So your upper limit, if you are able to increase that, you're approaching vitality. But if your upper limit is approaching your lower limit, you're approaching death. Now, the wider our gap, the more we can tolerate. The narrower our gap, the less we can tolerate. Someone who is close to death can't tolerate very much. I hope that makes some sense. But the thing that pushes down on our upper limit is what we call external stressors or environmental stressors. These things push down on our upper limit and cause us to not be as healthy as we should. Some external stressors might be sugar in our diet, fast foods, lots of medications. These are all external stressors that oppose our ability to adapt. Our only resistance is our internal resistance. That's our body's ability to counteract the effects of what's happening in our environment. Now I need you to understand, our internal resistance is not fixed. It can be good today and 10 years later it's horrible. It can be horrible today and 10 years later it is good. It depends on what you do to promote your internal resistance. How much sleep you get, the quality of water you drink, the minerals that you're having in your diet, the vitamins you're having in your diet, the macronutrients that you're having in your diet, the fats, the carbohydrates, the proteins, not just the quantities of them, but your sources of them as well. People often say that animals are the best source of protein. And so if you want to have a lot of muscle, then you need a lot of animal meat in order to develop that muscle. I'm just going to point out something that is obvious to me, maybe not obvious to some. Do you realize that the biggest mammals in the world, those are the biggest animals in the world right now, don't eat meat? The biggest animals in the world, whether it's an elephant, a rhinoceros, a hippopotamus, a greyback gorilla, most of the biggest animals don't eat meat. And most of the strongest animals don't eat meat, like a silverback gorilla is a vegetarian. And it is also a lie that we learned in school that you can tell what animals eat by dentition. In other words, because something has long canine teeth does not mean that it eats meat. The fruit bat has long canine teeth. That's a fruit bat, long canine teeth like a dog, but they only eat fruits. A gorilla has large, long canine teeth, great long fangs, but they don't eat meat. They eat fruits, vegetables, and so on. And animals, for example, didn't always eat meat. And that's another story for another dispensation in another program. But everybody ate fruits and vegetables in the beginning, both man and animals. So we'll talk about that at some other time. All right? But back to our point here. If our external stressors overpower our internal resistance, then our upper limit will fall. If our internal resistance is strong enough, then it can overpower our stressors and we can have a wider vitality, a better vitality as our upper limit increases. So long as our life experiences exist within the boundaries of our gap and do not exceed our upper limit, we do not get sick. We only get sick, we only succumb to illness when our experiences exceed our ability to adapt to them. So if our external stressors become overly strong compared to our internal resistance, then our upper limit may fall and then we get sick at these points. Where now what we were once able to resist easily, we're now succumbing to. For some people, they might be more susceptible to cancers. For other people, they might be more susceptible to diabetes or to stroke, depending on their genetic weakness. But if you live a particular way, then it almost does not matter what your genetic weakness is. As long as your gap is wide enough, you will never manifest the illness or the condition that you are genetically vulnerable in. And this is important. All right? How does chiropractic work? The healthier your nervous system is, the wider your gap will be. Chiropractic improves nervous system function. By reducing irritation of the nerves, it improves the nervous system function. If your nervous system is working more efficiently, then your ability to adapt to your environment improves. And so your gap widens. That's one of the ways that we can widen our gap, but it's not the only way. Because if you are adjusted every single day, twice a day, it doesn't matter. If you eat poorly, you're not going to be healthy. If you're in a constant stressful environment, like a marriage that is horrible or a family situation that is dangerous, you're not going to do well. So we encourage persons. Wellness is it's something that's achieved by having a robust, fulsome approach to achieving it. There's no one thing that one will do and be healthy. You have to be doing a lot of things right, because there are a lot of things that are wrong that's coming at us, that if we don't do what is right, we're going to succumb. So I hope that makes sense. In our office, we have technology that helps us to identify misalignments in the vertebrae by using technology such as a rolling thermal scan that we roll up the spine to measure if there is an imbalance in the temperature of the skin, which can be one way that a misalignment is manifested. Or we measure the muscles along the spine, which is another way that we can assess to see if the spine is doing what it should. These muscles in the spine may be thrown off in their tension if there's an imbalance. And this is how we know what's what. A chiropractor is like a GP. A chiropractor is like a GP, general practitioner, in the sense that they have a general training. There are specialists within chiropractic, just as there are specialists within the field of medicine and any other branch there is. They're always specialists. But if somebody asks, what does a chiropractor do? I want you to understand, so I'm going to show you this very quick demonstration here from a lady who was given a task to do. Now, if chiropractic really does improve nervous system function, then somehow the chiropractic adjustment must have an impact on the primary organ of the nervous system, which is your brain. And this example shows that. So a lady was asked to wiggle her left ankle, and they took a functional MRI of her brain to see what's going on in her brain. She was then asked to repeat the process. And I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit so you can see what we're talking about here. She's asked to repeat the process. And what we see happening here is that before the adjustment, all these areas of lights are areas of activity of the brain. And all these areas of lights after the adjustment are areas of activity of the brain to do the same task. So what we can say is there seems to be more activity required to do the task before the adjustment than was required after the adjustment. And whenever you have a greater requirement before versus after, it typically just means that there is greater efficiency afterwards. So this one here, which has fewer areas of activity to move the left ankle, means that the brain had to do less work to do the same task, which basically says to us that the brain is healthier after the adjustment. And that's what we find. What we find is that the nervous system function improves with the adjustment. And so a chiropractor is not a bone doctor really, in the sense that we're not treating the bones. What we're doing is we're trying to use the bones to improve the function of the nervous system. And so a chiropractor is better thought of as a nervous system doctor. And that is that. Now, a chiropractic neurologist is a specialist within the field of chiropractic. So as I said before, a regular chiropractor is like a general practitioner. They're trained in general work. So we have the ability to also refer persons to other professionals, whether it's a medical professional or whatever else. We have that training. But the chiropractor typically just realigns the spine, whereas the chiropractic neurologist, which is my subspecialty, uses non-medicinal means to treat neurological conditions, bearing in mind that not every neurological condition can be trained or treated non-surgically or non-medicinally. Some neurological conditions require medical intervention, but where possible, that's what we try to do, is by retraining the brain, we can improve nervous system function much of the time. These are some of the conditions that I have personally treated: developmental delays, learning challenges, neurobehavioral disorders, neurodeficits, balance or movement disorders, and brain injuries. And we treated a lot of persons with a lot of these conditions with varying degrees of success, some with excellent results, some with not good results at all. Some people don't change at all. It really depends mainly on the cause of their problem. If the cause of the problem is something that can be changed, then oftentimes they will have an improvement. At Gardner Chiropractic, our vision is simple: to identify subluxations wherever and whenever they happen, to provide a program of chiropractic care to improve people's health and wellness. And when I say a program, a chiropractic program typically is about 12 visits long. And 12 just happens to be a good number that is like, it's not too long. It's long enough so that if there's a change that should happen, it should happen within 12 visits. But it's long enough to say that if it hasn't happened by 12, it might not happen. So it's a nice round number that allows us to be able to do that. And so you find that with the chiropractic adjustment, many chiropractors actually use some kind of a plan that revolves around 12 visits. And that's what we do here. We also educate our community, and this is one way that we educate our community. All right, this is one way that we educate our community through classes like these, and it's important. We have to take responsibility for our health and well-being. And the key to success, which is the ultimate key, number 7, is taking responsibility. But the key to success in getting and staying well is this: we have to take responsibility for our health and well-being. It is not somebody else's choice. You cannot equate somebody's desire to maintain optimal health and well-being to wearing a seatbelt and saying that if the government can mandate you wearing a seatbelt, which in essence does and is shown to save lives, then they should be able to mandate something that potentially could impact somebody's health and well-being, and they have no say in it. I'm not for tyranny, but I am for common sense. I'm not for fear, I'm for knowledge. And perfect knowledge drives out all fear. The problem that exists is that knowledge is being kept from the majority of persons. Most people don't have enough information to make an informed decision. And so the decision that most of us make are based on fear, especially as it relates to this situation. And any decision that's based on fear ceases to be ethical. If you are trying to get somebody to do something and you get them to do it by using fear as your strategy, then that is a violation of ethics. And this is what we see happening. And there is no one to stand on the side of what is right to say, stop using fear as your strategy. If you want people to make a decision that is in their best interest, nobody wants to make a decision that's going to make them worse. Nobody. If somebody decides they want to take the recommended solution, it's not because they want to make themselves worse. If they decide that they want to take it. If they decide that they do not want to take it, it's not because they want to make themselves worse. It's because they believe that by acting in that way, they're making themselves better. Give people the freedom to be able to make their choice. The only thing that I will do is, if anyone asks, is try to provide more information so that it adds to their body of knowledge so that they can frame how they make their decisions based on the knowledge that they have. Not make a decision that I want, because I want you to make the decision that you're comfortable with. That's what I want. All right? So let's work together, people, and start loving more and hating less. Too much of it. If you go to our video page that is on YouTube, go to Gardner Chiropractic and Neurology, or just Gardner Chiropractic, sorry. It will take you to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. Go to our videos section. We have many testimonials on there. I've deliberately avoided getting new testimonials. I've had a lot of new great things that we could get as testimonials, but our wait list is so long already that I'm nervous about putting more testimonials on there, because when people watch these testimonials, they want to come in, and I don't want to make it so that people have to wait too long. So I've tried not to. Having said that, you're free to check out these testimonials. They're fun. Some of them are awesome. Some of them are just nice, feel-good stories. But watch them. I enjoy them. Now, for those of those of you who are on this live right now, I'm going to encourage you to write down your name in the chat section, or make a comment. If you're using your own account with your name on it, then just make a comment in the chat section. This will serve as our register so that we will know that you actually participated in the lecture. Having made that comment, if it is that you want to take advantage of any of this of the offer that I'm going to share with you right now, then all you have to do is just send us an email to indicate your interest. There's no money that needs to be spent. All right? So if you are not an existing patient and you would like to come in for an examination, for me to examine you and find out what's going on, if what's going on is something that we can help with, then you will receive, if you've been on this program here and you've written your name in here, you'll receive a 40% discount off that new patient examination. That 40% discount is actually a pretty sizable discount. If, however, you wish not to take advantage of it, then don't send the email. This is not some strategy to catch anybody. It's your choice, right? But if you choose to, the reason I offer a discount is because I want to incentivize it, because two things. One, having been through this presentation, your knowledge level is different from somebody coming off the street. And people who know more, they become more reliable patients and they refer more people to the practice. This is what is known. And because of those two things, it is in our best interest to lower the bar, to make it easier to get those people into our office, so that if we can help them, they'll be willing to share the information more than just some stranger off the street. So it is for that reason we offer this discount. All right, and all you have to do is to send an email to appointments@gcnjamaica.com. That's appointments@gcnjamaica.com. That's appointments@gcnjamaica.com. If it is, however, that you are already a patient of ours and you've listened to this presentation, we also have another special offer for you. And yes, just send a WhatsApp, sorry, not a WhatsApp, but send a message to appointments@gcnjamaica.com, and someone will be able to reply for you and write down your name so that you will receive these special incentives here. And these are not really incentives, these are just awards for having paid attention and listened in and whatever. You will receive, just for being a part of this, a 20% discount off your update examination. And this is provided that you have not already gotten the initial 40% discount as a new patient, right? You get 20% off your update examination, and you will receive a 20% discount off one treatment per person that you refer to the office. So if you refer somebody to the office, on the day that that person comes in, we will ask them, how did you hear about us? Just make sure that they know your name so they can tell us your name, so that we can give them a 20% discount. They will receive a 20% discount if you refer them to the office, and you will get a 20% discount off a treatment if you refer them to the office. All right, they get 20% discount off their exam, you get 20% discount off a treatment. There's also a phase discount that will be applied, and so anybody who is on this live and they are a patient of ours already, then at the end of your phase of care, if more treatments are recommended, then you'll get a 10% discount of the entire next phase of care, which works out to be about 12 visits again. So 10% off 12 treatments plus the cost of the update examination at the end of that. All right, and that last segment alone is more money than the initial 40% discount if you are just a new patient. All right, so I hope that helps. Here's our information. If you want to find us, you can find us on gcnjamaica.com. That's our webpage. Or on Facebook at facebook.com/GCNJamaica. Or YouTube, youtube.com/user/Gardner Chiropractic. I think our Twitter, is Gardner Cairo 1. I think so, not 100%. But if you call our office, we can give it to you. Or if you go to our, I think on our website, you can click on the icon for our Twitter account and our Instagram account. I think our Instagram account is Gardner Cairo or Gardner Chiropractic. But follow us on Instagram. We post sometimes some very important and interesting health tips that many people benefit from. So follow us on Instagram. It's a real pleasure being able to interact with you tonight. I know that a lot of persons would have had questions that they would want to ask. So what I will do is I will stick around for another 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes or whatever, to answer any questions you may have. So if you have any questions for me, it was a pleasure being able to share with you. And I hope that you enjoyed the presentation. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask so that we can try to answer. But for those who are leaving us, have a wonderful night. We went a little over, but we started a little bit late to ensure that we got everybody in. But thanks so much. We appreciate you a lot. And I hope you learned a lot. So God bless you and enjoy the presentation. Tanya, don't worry about missing it. You have not really missed anything. You would have missed the live, but you can always just slide the slider to the beginning and just watch it over. I'm going to leave it up for tonight. So you can just slide the slider to the beginning and watch it over from the beginning. All right, if you have a question now, you can always ask the question. All right, so I hope that makes sense. God bless you too, Lisa. And that goes for anyone who just tuned in. If you would like to watch it from the beginning, if you miss parts of it, you can always just slide the slider to the beginning and watch it from the beginning. Or watch it from whatever point you missed out on. Alright? So, are there any questions from anyone? Alright, Lisa, I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, Norma, for the show. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Sonia. Alright, so Patrick is asking about insomnia. Oh, I forgot to mention, there's no limit, Melba, on when you can take up. There's no limit on when you can take up um, the discount. No time limit, I should say.